Hello and welcome to Story Time with SexyAbraham. And in today's episode, we're not going to be talking about my story, actually. We're going to be talking about one of Tommy's stories. Now, hookups usually happen when someone wants to find a girlfriend. Well, our friend Anthony is known for hooking up literally anyone that asks him. But he hasn't had the best track record. So let's go back to early 2020, around February. My friend Tommy, who you may have seen in both of my last episodes, has never have been to a school dance. It's his senior year, and for once he wants to go to a senior prom. But there's one problem. He doesn't have a date. He thought of asking this one crazy girl in his art class, but she was in 10th grade and he thought that would be weird. He contemplates asking Anthony to hook him up, because in the previous year he had tried hooking him up with his girlfriend's older sister, and you can guess on how that turned out. After a while of thinking, he breaks and asks Anthony. Anthony happily accepts the challenge, and not even a few minutes pass by, and he has found someone. Tom was relieved at this. However, Anthony wanted this to be an actual relationship rather than just a prom date. Tom told him over and over again it was just a prom date. After a while, Anthony seemed to understand. Anthony set up a date where he and his prom date could meet, and Tom and his prom date could all meet. They were going to meet at a roller skating palace. Yes, a roller skating palace. Anthony also isn't really good at planning. He constantly switched the days. Eventually, they settled on one day where they were going to meet at 10 p.m. So let's flash forward to that day. Tom anticipating the date, and he was getting excited to meet her, because Anthony, for some reason, denied him ever to DM her, or ever seeing pictures of her, except for only one. And it was a really bad picture, because there was a flash, or something like that, I don't know. But only a few hours before they were supposed to meet, Anthony switched the time from 10 p.m. to 7 p.m. Tom was a bit confused and angry about this, but he went with it. Tom eventually made it to the palace, and he met up with Anthony, and finally met his prom date for the first time. Tom talks for her a bit, telling her stories and such, like stories like these. However, she didn't bring up anything to the table. Tom eventually ran out of things to talk about and just sat there awkwardly. He got bored of sitting there and went roller skating. He hadn't been roller skating for a while, so you can see how well that went. He comes back to the table tired and exhausted, but as soon as he comes back to the table, his date and her friend go roller skating. He tells them he'll catch up in a moment, but after one or two laps, they all come back. Tom waits for them to go again, but they don't for the rest of the night. Anthony eventually gets up and goes to get food. Tom follows along because he just doesn't want to sit there all awkwardly. This date isn't going that well so far, so at least she knows, the prom is coming. So we asked Anthony, so at least she knows about the prom, right? No, I never told her that, Anthony replied. Tom was obviously furious to hear that news. And just to put a little bit of salt on the wound, at one point, they were getting food. Then some random girl walks up to them and asks Anthony, how old will you be willing to date someone? Anthony responds, I'm not looking for a date, but my friend Tommy... Tommy quickly shuts up Anthony, reminding him he doesn't want a GF, he wants a prom date. They eventually return to the table, and Tommy has to sit across from them because there's no room for him. Then all three of them go to IHOP, while Tommy goes home, because there wasn't any point anymore. He failed the mission. But in the end, none of this mattered, because coronavirus decided to come knocking on the doors and decide to fuck every social event out there. So this all didn't matter. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is why you never ask Anthony to be hooked up. Episode 4 in a few months. Bye!